So when do we start? Like, does it like just kind of goes rolling? Or?
We probably already started.
Oh, okay.
We just don't really know. And all of a sudden, Brian, he starts up with
okay.
that's lets us know that Brian's ready. So
Nice.
yeah, we've been going. So, but it's it's been a journey, man. It's been a lot of fun so far.
That's awesome.
So we're looking forward to, really just continually going, and just kind of growing it, but kind of keeping it the same. I really don't want to change the type of guests that we have on. I like that kind of.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you having me on, though.
Oh, when I first met you, I thought this is going to be good.
Really?
Yeah. I just there's something about you, your confidence and how you presented yourself, and then the more I started hearing about you and your what you've done, just mostly it was all about the paddling, because it was kind of like a very linear kind of,
we're all in the same playing field.
We're all in the same playing field. This is what we do. So everybody just talks about the whole paddling thing, but then talking to you and finding out about what you do and where you're at, and how you got into this, and then where this has taken you, and how you're back here and you're doing coaching. So there's so much there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. For people to hear. So,
right.
That's that. So let's start out with where were you raised? Where are you? Are you local? Are you?
So actually, I was born in Manila, Philippines, and then when I was about 3, I moved out to the East Coast. That's where my parents were at. So pretty much my whole childhood life, I grew up in Maryland. Definitely a big change from living out here in California. I mean, I've always thought like I'm gonna live in California. Like well, my cousin he went out to college in SDSU, and then he was like, dude, you gotta live out in California, man. Like, and then I was like, dude, I gotta live in California. And plus, at the time, like, grew up on the East Coast, and I kind of grew up everywhere. I went to school in the Philippines for a year when I was a kid. My brother's dad was in the Air Force, so I had the chance to like live in Japan. I like moved everywhere a lot growing up. And then so when I was growing up in Maryland, right, I kind of grew up in the scene of like skateboarding. And so, back then I was like, I have to live in California. That's where all the skate spots are at and whatnot.
It's year round.
Huh?
It's year round.
Yeah, it's year round skateboarding, beautiful weather, like just a scene. And then from there, after maybe a year after high school, that's when I joined the Navy, and I was like, I'm going to live out in California. Well, the Navy put me out in California, and I've been here ever since, so I got really lucky.
You were really lucky, because just because you joined the Navy doesn't necessarily mean you're going to California.
Yeah, for sure.
They got a lot of other places they'd be happy to send you to.
For the last, I'm telling you, I got super lucky. For the last 10 years, I've been in California.
Yeah.
And that in itself is already, like, I'm super stoked for it. So.
Oh yeah. It's interesting that because I have a really close friend of mine that's Filipino, and Todd the barber, and matter of fact, he's coming on in 2 weeks. I talked to him the other day. But this guy's a character. I mean, he is so funny. Surfer,
the
surfing barber, because that's why I'm Todd the barber.
Yeah,
because that's what he does. And this guy's got so many stories.
Nice.
Because he's been cutting hair for so long.
Yeah,
and, skater, surfer, just a crazy guy.
And they hear a lot of stories too. Like I go to my barber and I sit in the chair and we just start talking. They're like their own. They're like, I told my barber one time, I was like, you guys are like therapists.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it used to be that way with me, with Todd. I'd sit and we'd talk, and he'd cut and listen, but Todd's a talker.
Yeah.
And pretty soon it was more about Todd and Todd, so I think I'm his freaking therapist. But I'm looking forward. Todd's going to be he's a fun one.
Oh man.
But so you went into the Navy right out of high school?
So I went in the Navy after high school. I tried the whole college thing for about a year. And during high school, I wasn't like the best student. I was like pretty much average. And I joined the Navy. I wanted to join the Navy because my grandpa was in the Navy. The rest of my family, they're all Air Force. So all my uncles, they were in the Air Force. And then I just thought, I was really close to my grandpa. So I thought joining the Navy was probably the best deal because all I heard was stories of hitting ports and girls and drinking and just having a good time and just that whole experience. And during that time, because he joined during kind of during World War II, so like 1943-ish, and then retired in the 60s. And going listen to some of his stories, and just kind of like the overall experience, I thought was really interesting for me. And during that time, as I progressed in the Navy, the times he grew up in was a lot more rough, right? So they were only Filipinos at the time, because this is when they were recruited out in the Philippines. Filipinos at the time were only allowed certain jobs. They were only allowed like being a steward's mate, which is like your cook now, right? Or your culinary specialist. Steward's mates, they basically were in charge of cleaning the staterooms, cooking food for the officers and whatnot. And he retired as an E5 for like 23 years in the Navy. And it's different. It was a different time.
Yeah, way different. It's hard to actually think about a time where it was like that, where your background dictated what you could do. How far you can go, what kind of jobs that you can get. I mean, it's really it's hard to your head around it in today's world, thinking that that's how they lived.
No, absolutely.
At that point in time,
absolutely, because when it comes to at least just with my grandpa, me joining the Navy, it was kind of like I don't know, it's like kind of almost me following in his footsteps,
Right.
I thought it was pretty neat. Like when my last like ship deployment, I was on the hospital ship, and I remember when I was standing manning the rails, right, where you like stand out on the edge of the ship, outlining the ship, and then you're basically just heading out underway, right? And I remember standing out there. I was like, okay, this was probably what he did back then, and this was just back in 2018, and being over like all over the Western Pacific. I'm sure those were places that he's been to.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that I was doing, when I was going through, I was like, okay, maybe this is what he experienced, right? So, and the fact that he went to boot camp down in San Diego, right? So, have you been to Liberty Station before?
No.
Yeah, Liberty Station is it's now like more of an economical like businesses out there, like food places. So they turned that whole like old naval boot camp base into like more for like a park and stuff for people to use. So
oh really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you ever get a chance to go down there, you'll get a chance to see like the chow halls they ate at and whatnot. So it's pretty
That's
interesting.
kind of a cool thing that rather than just shutting it down and letting it stay vacant, that they're actually using it for something that people can enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
That is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
So your experience actually being in the Navy, how did that match up to your vision after Grandpa's tales and stories? And
well, I will say it didn't disappoint. I did my earlier years in the Navy. I had the opportunity to deploy on ships and hit ports and visit all types of countries all over the Western Pacific, meet people, party, drink, but also, spending that time to kind of explore the culture and exploring the country. And I did that. I think, I had a good group of friends that kind of had a good balance of going out and also enjoying the time while you're in port. So, I think that was,
well, I mean, if you could do that and also, enjoy the different cultures that are there and be able to see it. And that's an experience. That's something that you'll take with you for the rest of your life. You'll be telling Grandpa stories.
For sure. I mean, they're called sea stories, I think one of the most interesting places I've ever been to was in Sri Lanka. We were on the Pacific Partnership mission in 2018, and so we have all these different countries that we go to for about 2 weeks and doing community health engagements. And I thought that was the most interesting country because at that time there was a clinic I was working at during one of these community health engagements, and the clinic was in pretty rough shape. Like, sanitation was bad. It was falling apart. There was no roofs. Like, the beds they were using were like from like 40s or something. And then I remember when I was working there, I was like, man, I'm never going to complain about my clinic again, But it was awesome. It was a good experience because you are out there just giving education to these kids. You're providing some basic healthcare opportunities that people never had the opportunity to get. I saw some pretty interesting cases. I was helping out with one of the dental clinics, and you'd be surprised how like young these kids are, like 5, 6, 7 years old, and they their teeth are just black.
Yeah.
They weren't educated on how to brush their teeth. They don't have just the education on that. And we were there just helping provide that education and some dental treatment and all types of treatments for them. So and the country itself is really beautiful.
That's really, I think, when you're really traveling, you're not going to the tourist areas. You're not going to the scenic route, where everything is clean and kept up nice, and everybody's, you've got 1,000 tourists taking pictures. Same thing. It's when you're going and you're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real deal. That's so much of what's out there that we don't see and we don't talk about, and really for the most part don't even know that it exists.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a traveler, think as long as you're kind of open to like these new experiences, it is eye opening, and it is you kind of look back and you're like, man, there's a lot of things that we take for granted here that people we don't realize.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think every time I feel like, when things are actually harder, there's probably somebody who's
has it way harder. Worse. Well, when you stop and think about, let's just talk about your trip from San Diego up to here for the for the weekend, and you're on the freeway, and there's a lot of traffic, and it's stop and go, and it's really easy to allow your emotions to get, frustration. I just want to get where I want to go.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all this traffic is in the way. But you don't really stop and think about the car that you get to drive.
Yeah.
The freeway that's 5 or 6 lanes wide.
Yeah.
All concrete.
Yeah.
No potholes.
Nope.
It's, and it's in Southern California, and you're to the left of you as you're coming up, you look over and you see the Pacific Ocean a whole way, through.
Yeah.
So, we sometimes, I think, are so jaded in our views and our ways of looking at life that we don't appreciate. Mm-hmm. Even the worst of things that are happening to us here, being in traffic, sitting on a freeway, is heaven to somebody else that doesn't even have a car, and their roads are dirt. And,
right. Exactly.
So
we're spoiled.
Oh, beyond. Yeah, absolutely beyond.
We're real spoiled.
Yeah. So what is it in the Navy that you, what's your job classification?
So I am a hospital corpsman. I've been in the Navy for the last 10 years as a hospital corpsman. I'm at E6 or first class, right? So when my grandpa was in the Navy, he retires at E5, right? So I just made E6 like a couple months ago. So making that, I was pretty stoked. I was okay, this is something that he didn't get a chance to do.
He didn't get that,
right? He didn't get that, because of his job, right? Or his the people he worked for. But he had a pretty versed career. He worked at the White House.
Oh, really?
Under President Eisenhower during his time.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, he wasn't like, he was up there. He was, I think if you're working at the White House, you have to be very sharp, high quality. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I'm a Navy corpsman. I had the chance to serve like on board ships, hospital ships. I just recently finished a tour with the Marines out in Camp Pendleton. And then now I work out in Coronado working for medical support for the BUDS training. Yeah.
No, that's got to be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it's for sure is interesting. I think I've been there for the last, I think it's been, 3-4 weeks already. And it's definitely, it's fun. It's eye-opening because you're on the other side of what you think is BUDS training.
Yeah. Luckily.
Yeah. Luckily on the other side for sure. but it's pretty awesome to see. And I've already got a chance to like talk to a Master Chief that was out there and just kind of hearing some of his firsthand experiences. It's wild, wild. He's retired now. He retired back in like 2005, he said. But just kind of hearing his stories were like, I've only deployed on ships, right? I've never been to like, and I wasn't like down out in Afghan or Iraq or anything like that. So I have friends who were, but I wasn't. And so like hearing some of his firsthand stories of like just him running and gunning was like wild. Yeah. And this was just 2 days ago,
Yeah. I think that the SEALs over the last few years, I mean, there's been a lot of publicity, going on with some of the things, that they have done and been around, which have been freaking amazing. But also too, now we've got some ex-SEAL celebrities with, David Goggins and Jocko and some of these guys that are bringing to light the SEALs training in a different way. They're the way they talk about it, the way they present it, and also I think that it's actually almost bigger than life.
Yeah,
these guys and what they're doing. So so with you being out there and firsthand and watching it, how tough is it? Rate it from your perspective of seeing it, watching it, and.
So right now I work with kind of like the pre-buds training. So there's like different phases that they go through. Obviously the first phase, like the infamous like Hell Week and stuff. And so right now I'm kind of like in that pre-bud stage where there's like a bunch of candidates are kind of getting conditioned to kind of get into what they're going to experience during that first phase. And so far, right now, it's kind of like they're working. There's like different phases they work on. It's like crawl, walk, run. So crawling is like you kind of get familiarized with like what evolution they're going to be doing or what type of training event. And then walk, they're going to go ahead and practice those evolutions and get their times in, their reps in, and then the run is their test, right? They're going to be put to the test. They're going to have pressure and whatnot. And so for myself, kind of seeing that perspective, it is good that they're kind of getting familiarized with what is going to happen, right? But the training isn't easy. I tell you that. It looks. As me, like if I thought about it going back, would I do it? I've always thought about that. Like I probably would, just to try, but it is very difficult, I think. But I don't think it's that hard that no one else can do it. I think it's a mindset thing for sure. And it's the people that go into it like thinking like that you'll know who's going to quit for sure. It's quite interesting to see.
I think that you're right, because the more that I have heard people talk about it either on other podcasts or books you read or whatever, it does sound like everything boils down to the mindset. Right. Are you going to cave in and give up, or are you going to push on?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like there are people, and this is me. Like like looking at it from a medical support and standard. Right, we're there to make sure that they're, one, they're safe, and two, that they are good to go and good to train. Right, or if anything happens, we're there to help support that and make sure they're taken care of. And so that's kind of like where I think about like what my job is like over there, and to make sure that they're good to train. And so you'll see it from my, it's quite interesting because you'll see people, some of the candidates who don't want to do it. So they'll find any excuse to get out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like my stomach hurts or I have diarrhea. And really? Yeah.
So that is surprising because, I'm my picture, my vision are these guys that are just like over the top, just freaking tougher than nails. And an excuse like that just wouldn't even happen, I guess, because it's really hard to understand, because it's hard to get into, isn't it? I mean, you don't just
No, I think I'm not sure what the process is, but I mean, they obviously have to see a recruiter, and they go through like the screenings and whatnot, and they have to go to boot camp, and then they still do more training. But I also learned like a lot of these kids have never seen seen the ocean too, and that was today.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So I mean, I think when it comes to the training, it is difficult.
Yeah,
It is difficult. I mean, it's from what I've seen so far.
yeah,
Again, it's only been like 3-4 weeks.
right.
But I've seen these guys are coming out of Hell Week and they're hurting. They're beat up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much I can really disclose about that, but I just know that they hurt and they're really pushing their bodies to limit mentally, physically, and I think it's you'll see the ones that pull through is that the ones that don't quit.
What do you think average age for these guys that are going through this?
Oh, these guys are young.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like 18 to 20, 22.
Really?
Yeah, they're young.
See, again, in my mind, I'm thinking that, these are an older group of guys that have already.
It's the shave head.
Oh my God. Okay. Because I know.
It's a shave head.
I know for me, there would have been no way in hell that at that age,
Yeah.
I would have had the fortitude to see it all the way through. I wouldn't. Yeah, I would have had a tummy ache.
Yeah. No, I mean, there. Not to say that there aren't seasoned people. Like there's some people that are coming from the fleet.
Yeah.
Who either failed buds and then went to the fleet and they want to go back, so they're back there again, or there are people who. I think there was I think one of the last class I saw, he was like 30, 31, and he was crushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. I think that an older, mature mind also has seasoned itself and is tougher and will accept more and understands that the pain is only going to last for a certain amount of time. But the memory of ringing the bell is going to be a lifetime. And I think that it takes a while and it takes a mature mindset to understand that.
Right.
It's easy to cave in when you don't understand or think about the effects
right.
that it's going to have later, and then not even just seals. I mean, it could be paddling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be giving it your all, and then all of a sudden you get tired, and it's just easy to quit and just go through the motions.
Yeah.
Rather than just gut it through. But once you quit, and then let's take paddling for example. Once you quit and you're back on shore, you got to live with what you did.
Yeah.
And that only comes through the experience
right.
of cheating yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I think I try to emulate what I've learned, like kind of in the military, but just kind of like a mental mindset kind of deal. Like it's not necessarily like in buds. Like, as a corpsman, right? We have like when I was serving with the Marines, like I had to make sure I was faster than them or stronger than them, or like at least they know that I know how to do my job and I can pick them up and like get to safety and whatnot. And so I always held that to my standard. And when it comes to like make sure these guys are taken care of, like you gotta do what it takes, right?
Yeah.
For most days, it's when you're on coverage, like nothing happens. But when the time does come, you got to make sure you are on point and give your all, right?
Yeah.
And to never quit. And so.
Yeah, it sounds like that. I can understand that. I can see where you're going to do everything you possibly can to show them they can rely on you.
Yeah.
They got to have some faith in you.
Yeah.
That you're not just going to stand by idle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, like, I think with the, say, for instance, Lard, right? Dragon Boat team. I always try to take out the individualism that is in the sport sometimes, and try to really put in enforce like, hey, like we're crossing the finish line together.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be you crossing the line; it's going to be the whole boat.
Right.
And so, you being able to be an integral part of that crew is important, because Dragon Boat it's a discipline. You have to be. It's a discipline as a sport, and you have to be disciplined as a crew. right? Because then you have 1,000-pound boat. You're trying, or I don't know how much it is, a couple 100 pounds,
Yeah.
right? And it's fully loaded. You got to be able to move it fast, and you have to have some discipline when it comes to moving that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that last week, with you, that, it was the beginning stage of build the team.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the new with the new season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to start it on the right foot, and I know. I think I saw you at the tree when Johnny was just standing by, and I was like, what are you fucking doing?" Like, go. I was actually kind of pissed there, but
I noticed that. Yeah. And the funny part about it though is because I've been through a police academy, before I was a police officer, and it was all the same thing. It was all militaristic, kind of viewpoint. And that happened. It was just like, it was almost like, yeah, I like that because unfortunately it seems like that's the only way you can really bring people together is draw the line in the sand and say, this is it. There is no wavering. There is no gray area here. It's one or the other. You're either in or out.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that.
I try not to I don't want people to think like, especially the crew, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, he's in the military. Like he's doing this because he's in the military." Like, no, dude. Like I'm not. Like it's a team. There's organization. There's a structure that I feel like is good, right, for any type of activity that you're doing, right? When I was doing jiu-jitsu, like before every class, like you had your warm up. There was a very standardized warm up. You had, you're doing this, you're doing counting, and then you sit down, you listen to the professor, he talks, and then he shows you, and then you do, and then he kind of goes around and kind of helps adjust like some of the movements that you're doing, and it was very structured. And then all of a sudden the hour's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, I feel like with any coach or any like rowing sport or like paddling sport, like there has to be some type of structure, at least for me when I'm coaching, because I want to see, like for me as a coach, I'm looking at it as, I'm facilitating the workout. I'm making those adjustments for every paddler, and I'm looking at the whole boat as a whole. How's the boat running, right? Where is the timing breakup? Where are these small details, right? And so, because in a drag mode, right, you have 20 people who are trying to hammer out a 500-meter pace or a 500-meter race, and you want to be on time, on sync, right? Hitting together, exiting together, applying that same pressure across the board. And it's the small details that need to be refined because anybody can be on a boat and paddle, right?
Right.
It's the small details that count.
Well, and I think that's really where the importance of a good coach lies, because left up to everybody, no coach, and 20 people show up.
Yeah.
20 people get in a boat, and 20 people know that you're supposed to be in sync. 20 people will never get in sync on their own.
Right.
It just won't happen because you have too many different people with different strokes, different rhythm, different breathing, different body structure. There's too many differences, and if you don't have that person in their little OC1, ready to burst, you're not gonna work on the nuances. You're not gonna get that.
Yeah,
that together,
that cohesion.
Yeah,
for sure. And so I tried not to, I try to, for me, I try to draw the line to where, I try to make sure things are fair across the board, right? But the one things I try to explain, right, and that they know are my expectations and the pillars that I go by,
right?
And that they try to abide by those pillars, right?
Explain your pillars.
So my pillars are accountability, commitment, and teamwork. Accountability is being accountable for yourself and for your team. So not just for yourself, but also your teammates, right? I think from there, if you're holding your teammates to a standard, right? And I guess where it kind of goes in the military, right? Holding a standard.
Sure.
And it just kind of helps build that culture. And I'm trying to build a culture where they are also taking an initiative, right? And they're taking that pride to what they want this crew to be like or this team to be like. And it's not my vision to kind of guide them to what I want, right? It's a whole collective. At least that's how I kind of run it, right? So accountability to themselves, right? Make sure that they're if they want to set a goal for themselves, that they can find themselves to be accountable to trying to achieve it. And commitment to the crew, to the team, committed to not quit, committed to putting their best foot and having a good workout and being able to come off practice and off water like, hey, that was solid. I learned something, or I learned that I need to work on something. And teamwork, right? Dragon boat's a sport where teamwork is super important, because then if you're that one guy who's just on the boat and he thinks that he can push his boat by himself, right? Then who wants him on the crew, right?
Right.
I would rather have somebody who's probably not as strong or not as fast, but who has the ability to kind of kind of work with each other. Is super important, because that gelling builds that culture, right? And two, helps move the boat fast. So that's how
isn't it kind of like the saying of you're only as strong as the weakest link? Yeah,
for sure.
If you need them all,
you
need everybody. You have to pull together. And I think that's the important part of having a coach, is because he's going to be able to throttle down one and push on another. And trying to find that balance between them all.
Yeah, there has to be a balance, right? Like, there has to be a balance of, like, you can't run a team to the ground, right? By just yelling. Like, you're not, like, and people learn different ways.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
There are different learners, right? Some people don't respond to specific ways you talk to them or whatnot. So, so you kind of have to balance it. So for me, when I'm on the water and I'm coaching, right, I try to make sure that they're able to understand what I'm trying to explain, and two, that they're open to what I'm talking about. And so, I mean, with the sport of dragon boat racing, it's so fun, it's so defined, right? You have different people, like different strokes, right? So you got to work on the blending and whatnot. So I don't know. I think I try to have a balance of everything, what I want and what the crew wants.
And I think it's probably even more difficult too in looking at a boat with not just different people and different sizes and different abilities, but different experiences.
Yeah,
there's from one seat to the next, it could be a vast amount of paddling experience that you've got to also work with and kind of blend together.
And I think that's with practice. That comes with practice, right? And I think for me, I want people to come out and feel like they earned something, right? They are like, okay, well, that was awesome. I learned something today, because when I was doing jiu-jitsu, right, I only did jiu-jitsu for about a year, and I always came back. Okay, I'm going to work on this. So I used to write down my stuff after a session, what I learned and what I need to work on. And then before the next day or next practice on the mats, I would look at that and like, okay, I need to work on this one. I'm good on this. And then so I would just kind of like keep rebuilding, rinse and repeat kind of deal. Like, and that's just me being kind of self-aware of what I know I need to work on. Yeah. And I tell the crew that too, right? If there's something that I keep telling you to work on and you're not working on it, either one, you're not listening, or two, you don't know. You don't realize it, right? Or you're not understanding.
Or you don't care.
Yeah, or you don't
Let's
care.
Throw that one out there. Or you don't care. Yeah. I mean, and it's true too, because of all the years of all the different sports that I have been involved in, there are those that only get to a certain level and then don't care whether or not they get better. Don't really care if they excel. They just don't. And that's a part of the equation also. I mean, that person is that person, and not saying that they're poor at what they do.
Yeah.
They could excel at what they do, but wherever it is at that level is that they're at, that's it.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
so.
They don't want to like go the next level or whatnot, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think self-awareness is super important. So I try to push that for them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you got to be aware. You got to remember first off, what I told you guys last weekend, right? You keep forgetting it, and it takes me another 10, 15 minutes to get you guys locked in.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you guys are moving. You're like, remember this, right? So,
Yeah. Remember the feel.
Yeah.
Remember what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, you know, it's, I think, now, let me kind of backtrack here. Okay. So, Dragon Boat, how long have you been in it? How long have you been doing it? You know, where has your experience come from, and where have you gone?
Oh gosh, let me go and pull out a calculator real quick. Hold on. All right, I've been doing it for 15 years.
15?
Yeah, since 2008.
Wow.
Yeah. I started. My uncle he did dragon boat racing in the Philippines back in the late 80s. And I remember it was like 2000. It was 2008, and 2008 or 7, I forget. But he basically, there was a Dragon Boat Festival that was happening in Washington D.C. And he signed up my family, my whole family, like my dad, my cousin, me, like 2 of my uncles, and he had some coworkers, and we were like a festival team. And so I remember
zero experience. He pulls everybody together.
Yeah. He was like, I did Dragon Boat back in the Philippines. You know, you gotta try this out.
Yeah, so I did it.
And
so let's go. Let's all go do it again.
I was like, what is Dragon Boat racing? Like,
So that was your foray into it. That was the beginning of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So after my first
coffee?
Yes, please. So after my our first practice, I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then so like the day of the Dragon Boat Festival in DC, it's a 2-day festival.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have like 500 meter distance races and like 200 meters. And our team was called Fire on Water. I don't know why we called it that. But and so, so I remember my first race, and like it was an all men's team. So we were like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like we're so yoked, right? So we're going to go ahead and crush these guys. And so, our first race, like, I don't remember if we won that. I don't think we won that first race, but we were like, fuck, man. Like, we were so close, right? And, like, the team was a lot smaller, right? And, like, how did they beat us? And so, you know, we were just, like, you know, back then, I was just, like, trying to hammer it out as hard as I can, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't know any details, right? I didn't know what I thought. I only thought paddling was you fucking move a paddle through the water, right?
Yeah. And you know, not to stop your train of thought, but I probably think that 90% of the people that don't know about paddling think that very same thing. It's just put the oar in the water and you're Indian guides going down the river.
I just took one of my coworkers out on one of my canoes, and you know I kind of just gave me a quick rundown of like you know what we're gonna do, and he just kind of paddled out, and he kind of paddled what he thought he did paddling. And then once we kind of got further away, I was like, all right, well, hey, let's do some drills real quick. And then kind of started showing him like how the boat moves and what he's doing. All of a sudden, he's like, dude, this is not what paddling I thought was going to be like.
No. It's very technical. How I explain it to people, it's like playing golf.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to arrive.
Yeah.
You're never going to have the perfect game. You're never going to shoot an 18 because you got 18 hole-in-ones, and never going to happen.
Yeah.
They don't even happen. It's like, okay, we're back now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
3, 2, 1. Go.
Yeah. So, where were we at? You remember, Brian?
No, sorry.
Yeah. We were talking about the paddling in the technique, and you were talking about taking your.
Oh yeah, so how I started. Yeah, so my uncle we started a team. He started a team, and I remember my first race. I was pumped. I was like, we gotta beat these guys. Mm-hmm. Like we gotta go. Like like we gotta come back. We gotta make our timing better. And all we know was like just timing. And then so after that first race, like I think we ended up winning our final race. That was a festival team race, open boat, right? So
Yeah.
all guys, and we're like, yeah, fuck yeah. And so we won that, and I was hooked after that. After that, I was hooked. We joined the DC Dragons. It's like the local club out in Washington DC.
Yeah.
And I was 17, or no, I was 17 or 18. And that was like my first. After that first race, I was hooked. So we joined the club. Like we did races throughout the East Coast, and then in 2009, like there was a world championship that was happening in Czech Republic. This is the IDBF one. This is before I kind of learned like the different organizations that are part of it.
Right.
And like I didn't know you could be on a national team for dragon boat racing, right? And so I was 18 years old, and so I heard you can try out. So I went up to Philadelphia. I think it was like a year after I started paddling.
A year?
Yeah, a year.
Wow.
A year. And I just loved it. I was something about like being on the race line and just trying to hammer out, go as fast as you can, moving boat as fast as you can. At the time, what I thought was fast, right? And so I tried out. You do OC1 time trial and up in Philadelphia, and I got selected. So during my summer, like during that year, the rest of that year, my parents would drive up to Philadelphia. We'd wake up at like 3, 4 in the morning, and it was a 2-hour drive to Philadelphia to make 6 a.m. practice. So we did that up until it was time to go to Czech Republic. And so I was training with the Philly kids, and so we went to the Czech Republic, and I was thinking like, yeah, we're gonna crush it, right? And I had no idea what an international experience is, and I knew that like I'm going to a world championship racing with Team USA in under 18 division, and I didn't know how fast these other countries were.
Isn't that really that's a real thing? That's our American narcissistic viewpoint of stuff is that we're American, we're going to go, and everybody else is less than. Yeah. Go ahead with the story.
Yeah, and I was 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't until I got a good slice of humble pie, not once but multiple times, right, throughout your paddling career, like you're always going to eat, that kind of slice, and so yeah, we went to Czech Republic. It was a good experience, good exposure to like a high level racing, not just like racing in my division, but also watching like the top teams in the world race, right? And so I already knew, I used to watch like. I think before going to Czech Republic, I was on YouTube. This was like when YouTube first came out, right? It was like 2008, right, 9. And I remember I used to watch the 2007 like IDBF or the 2007 World Championship that was happening in Sydney, Australia. And this was when the premier team, the U.S. national team, won the World Nations Cup, which is like the overall championship trophy that happens if you like win all these specific points. So I remember specifically watching the 500-meter distance one. Have you seen it before?
No.
Oh, it's really good. Like just listening to the commentator talk and commentate the race is like, oh man, this is so good.
That's the 2007?
In 2007, yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, 2007. And you'll see the USA, and then you'll see the Philippines on the left side, and you got Team China on the right side. And then you see like the first, this is it right here. So that's Team China. Yeah, that's Team China right there. That's Philippines. And then you have the USA right here. And so I remember I used to watch this before Czech Republic, and I was like, man, this is going to be awesome, right? This is what I thought like what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And it pretty much was.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, just the whole experience where you're there with like all these people from all over the world, trying to represent like their country and like at the highest level of the sport, and just that exposure, just watching, I was like, I love this, right?
Yeah.
We didn't win any medals, right? We got our butt kicked by Canada, and the Canadians are super. Here we go. Look at this. Look at that there. So Philippines right here, and USA on the right, and you see right here. This is why I just seeing this type of stroke rate,
right?
In real life was like unreal. This is about 120 strokes a minute, and then you see Philippines just jump out, and you have the USA just trying to hold on to them, and then in the body of the piece, you'll see them just making moves on the ground, and it was such an awesome thing to see. Yeah,
That's just amazing, just watching that stroke rate.
yeah.
And they've kind of slowed it into a tempo, but how fast do you think that stroke rate still is?
Oh, I think the stroke rate, probably around like 70. No, sorry, 80, at least 80.
At least 80?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least over 80. And that, I mean, that's what it has to be in that type of level, right? And especially how much power you have in that boat. I remember watching the U.S. team at practice, and they were just pumping it out, and they were just so fast. And so I did 2009, and we didn't win any medals at the time, and that was kind of like an eye opener. I was like, man, next Worlds, I'm gonna train really hard, right? I'm gonna make the next division because I was gonna be under 23, and so coming out from that World Championship, I had like a year to, so it was 2009 and 2010. I had just graduated high school, and during that summer, I was like training super hard. I like bought a paddle board. I was going to practice like an hour early. I was on the erg machine, and I was training with one of my mentors, Steven, and he was training to try out for the premier team. And so during the spring and summer, I was training. During the spring, I was training with him, getting prepped up for time trials. So I trained up, and I made the team. Did time trials, made the team, and so I was like, all right, this is it, right? This is. We're gonna win a medal here, right? So the World Championship in 2011 was in Tampa Bay, Florida, and this was the first. I'm the first generation of the under 23 division, and so this is the first time a group of kids that made the national team were in that U24, U23 division. It's U24 now, and so we went to Florida. Right, I didn't meet any of these teammates of mine until like about 3 days before the championship, and they all came from California.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of them came from California. Actually, all of them did. Right, there was probably 4 of us from the East Coast, and that is still true nowadays.
Is it really?
Yeah, I only say that because I'm one of the assistant coaches for the U24 division. That's helping these candidates get ready for selection for Thailand this year. And so it's kind of neat being full circle, right? I kind of was a teammate for 2011, and then also like helping coach again for 2023. I did help assist for 2021, and I was helping those kids get ready for Thailand or for Hong Kong, but it got canceled. Yeah. But yeah, so we were racing in 2011, and we were racing against Canadians again, and they're really fast, really. They have a great program up in Canada.
Do they really?
Yeah, they're like top notch, right? They're like, even the club teams are high level, and they paddle when it's not frozen over, like 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah, that's and it may just be my lack of knowledge or my naive viewpoint, but dragon boat being having an Asian beginning is so amazing to me that it is worldwide.
Yeah,
I mean, Czech Republic.
Yeah,
I mean, or Canada, or England, or whatever. I mean, it's so far removed from the Asian culture, and yet
here we
they
are.
gravitate towards the dragon boat in the racing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think people are so interested in it because it's such an interesting sport. I think there are plenty of times where I look at, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Why do I do this?
Yeah.
And like, why do people even want to do this sport? And then I ask my friends this, my teammates all the time, or my friends, I'm like, why do we do this, man? Like, we're over here like grinding and training hard and to move a boat really fast. But I think it's the community, it's the sport, the competition. I don't know. It takes some a special person, I guess, to continue doing it, I guess. I think that is a combination of all of those, but it's also the challenge of
being good at something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it's something that is always going to challenge you.
Yeah.
And if you're of the mindset and the makeup of always looking for a challenge, always wanting a challenge, not wanting to take the easy road. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I have never been interested in Dragon Boat, and my interest was in Outrigger.
Right.
And then Jill wanted to Dragon Boat.
Yeah.
My wife.
Yeah.
Those that don't know, and so Alex gets her on the team. Going to take her out. Going to do it, and everyone's looking at me like, "Come on, let's go do it. Let's go do it." Nah, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. Finally, go. Okay, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
Because Jill's going to be in the boat. And go do it. One time is all it took.
Yeah.
And it was like I was hooked. I was hooked because of no other reason than this is fucking hard. I love the training. I love the sprint. I love it just hooks you.
Yeah.
And I can't explain any better than that.
Right.
And that's probably a shitty way of even explaining it, but that's all that it was.
I mean, yeah, I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, you came from that canoe club? Like, are you gonna stay?"
Yeah.
like I was like,
yeah.
No, I was very interested because I think dragon boat racing, at least here in California, right? Like, it's grown. It's grown a lot. It's changed over the years too. When it comes to type of training, how we train, the technique, right? What are our thoughts and philosophies of when it comes to moving a boat fast, right?
Right.
And then also it's we have like two different communities that almost kind of they move a boat the same way, right? You have the outrigger community and you have a dragon boat community, and then there's always been like this weird like interesting divide between the two types of communities.
Yeah.
But you see now that's kind of like they're kind of coming together, right? Because you're seeing a lot of dragon boat people who transition to outrigger canoe racing because they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
At least for dragon boat does, right? Because then you need to have good endurance training, right? You need to have good aerobic based training, and then also we're still moving a boat the same way. We have paddles in our hands; they're just different types of paddles.
Right.
But you see a lot of, especially the last couple of years, you see a growth in the outrigger community and in the one-man races. Like a lot of the dragon boat paddlers that did dragon boat transition and train with outrigger canoe racing because it helps them in the dragon boat, right? Learning how to move a canoe fast through water, especially when you're in the ocean, transitions into how you move a dragon boat fast, right? And the type of paddling they do helps move the dragon boat fast. They all go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I remember when I first came out here, this was like 10 years ago. Like, oh, you do dragon boat? Oh, this guy doesn't know how to paddle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's weird, and it's like
I noticed that. I started paddling in 2014, and you would think I'd be a lot better paddler now because of that amount of time, but I was really, really shitty for a long time. You know, but then I remember it was definitely a division between dragon boat and outrigger.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know.
They just think they're better.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah. Call it like it is. I mean, it's really the truth.
Yeah.
They thought that is a much better sport. We're much better athletes. We're much strong. We're much whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but that definitely was how they viewed it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is that prevalent.
Yeah.
Today.
No, I agree because it's awesome because you'll see a lot of it's great because when you see the winter series races, I usually like to see when I look at the results, I look at for at least the open division, right? I go, who's a dragon boater, right? Where like who I know paddles in a dragon boat, but also trains outrigger, but is a dragon boater, right? Is in the top 10, right? And there's like it's good to see that we're kind of like like hey we're all the same, right? We all hold a paddle, but we all move a boat the same way, right? And so it's good to see that that there's less of a divide when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Because we're all ambassadors to the sport.
It's all one big community.
Yeah.
It's all about a paddle going in the water
Yeah.
and moving a boat.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the boat looks like or how many people are in the boat,
Yeah.
whether it's a single man, a 6-man, or 20.
No, yeah, for
You
sure.
know, it's all the same, and it's all honestly. There's no money to be made in paddling,
Yeah.
so we're all out there for the same reason. That's
Yeah.
just to have a fucking good time
Yeah.
and have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that when I first started, because I was telling one of the guys in the boat last Sunday, who is trying to correct me because you and I talked about it, the plopping in the water,
Yeah.
and it's that kind of camaraderie
Yeah.
that really I gravitated towards. Is everybody is super nice.
Yeah.
Everybody is helpful. Everybody is there for the right reason, and that's to have a good time, to be as good as you can get, but to have a fun time, have a good time, and that's the difference between. I don't hear anybody getting yelled at
Right.
in a dragon boat.
Right.
In a 6-man,
Yeah.
if you step out of sync, if you got somebody on your butt right now.
Right.
Right. It's a little bit more aggro.
Yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah, it's
maybe
a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
I think it depends on like the coaching too, right? And it's the culture too.
Yeah.
Culture, right? So like there are different clubs that I paddled with. They're like, where our teams are like really like teammates are holding their teammates accountable, or they're like, hey, you're not doing this right. But there's there's a balance to everything, right? Then you can't have too much of one thing and then have not feel like you are contributing to the crew.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's different teams, different levels of intensity. I think. I think especially if you're on a crew that is looking to perform, the tensions are going to be a little higher. Like we have to execute. A team like Lard, right? It's a community team like that's has a lot of growth that's happening right now. And then if you go to the team South Breeze, right? Like we just came off a world championship last summer, and a lot of us were training really hard, right? A lot of us were putting the miles, putting the work, putting the practices, going to practice, and really cleaning up those fine details. And we did very well. We podiumed at the World Championship, racing some of the top clubs in the world. And that was through the efforts of all the coaches and the paddlers who kind of have that same mindset.
Right.
And so I think it's
Yeah. So you're young, you get into it, your uncle introduces you to it. You go to Worlds. Where along the way did you decide that coaching is going to be a part of what you do? How did that evolve through all this?
It kind of evolved through my mentorship. Because I was mentored when I was young into paddling, and I've always thought that mentoring and pushing down. I've always took the thought of when I was mentored, he was teaching me, and I was like, well, there are people behind me too, right? And so, especially something you're passionate about and you love and you enjoy doing, you want to see the community grow. You want to see the paddlers that are coming up be where you were when you were younger. I kind of first started coaching Lard back in 2016. But when I look back at it, I was like, I was still not that experienced, right? But I just wanted to teach, right? I only taught what I knew. And it wasn't until I kind of started ironing out the more fine details and learning how to train properly. But it's always been the mentorship. The mentorship, especially with these U24 kids, they're looking to try to make selection, make the team, and they're like, you were first generation, under 24 division, we used to oh man, you guys got it so good, right? Like we met each other 3 days before Worlds, and we had to figure it out then. And they have so much time. They have a whole staff. They have a lot of resources. There's more knowledge now, and and just passing down knowledge to help train these guys is kind of why I got into coaching. I tell you a story that one of these kids back in 2021, they were training up for we had a pod, right? So there's like 100 candidates usually in the beginning, and it trickles down to like 50. But I had a kid who had the least amount of resources, was the slowest out of the group, slowest guy out of the group, and he wasn't sure what he wanted to do or if he could make it. So I was his pod leader, and so I had a group of kids, and he was like, "Hey, coach, can you like meet with me like every weekend?" And then or Zoom over weekend, right? Because he lived in NorCal. His name's Sid, and so we met every weekend. I asked him what he was like, what kind of training was he doing, what kind of resources he had. Is there anything that you can do to get a resource or find a way or ask somebody? And so he kind of did these things. He was able to find somebody to loan him a canoe to use every now and then. I told him like, hey, you need to get on a canoe club, right? So you can get some paddling, get your miles in. What kind of workout are you doing? All right, so I would assign him a workout and he would do it. And then I asked him what his nutrition was. He wrote down, he had a whole nutrition log. And I was reading what he was doing, and so I kind of adjusted his nutrition. I asked him what kind of cardio he was doing. All these things that kind of help frame him. And then, he was also finishing up college, right? So he's like, well, it's my senior year. Like, do I want to train? Do I want to enjoy my last year of college, right? He had a lot of things. So for me, I was a mentor to just kind of help him adjust and be balanced to what he was doing because he had a lot of stuff going on. And so, over time we kind of met, and, I would do videos, I would do some critiques, and, and there were times where he wanted to quit. And I was like, dude, don't fucking quit. Like, why are you going to quit? You're not going to know you're going to get selected if you don't try.
Right.
Right. And so I would just be blunt with him like that. I was like, dude, don't fucking quit, man.
Yeah.
like you're never going to find out if you made selection if you quit. And again, he was the slowest one. So over time, he started like getting stronger, getting faster on the canoe, right? And then because time for selection is all time based on time trials, and so I had him come out a day or two before camp for selection camp, and I had a little like mini clinic with him to help him kind of prep him for his time trials, what he should be thinking about, how he should be conducting himself during the time trial, so he kind of has a structured way to be thinking when he's conducting his time trial, so he has the best time. And so yeah, he did the camp, and I gave him one of my Team USA shirts, right? And I gave it to him. I was like, "Don't wear this unless you get selected." Mm-hmm. And so he like took that, and he was like, "Okay, coach." He was all about it.
Yeah.
And like it was the fact that he was like really open, receptive to like what I was kind of telling him, and like kind of like his roadmap. And at the end, he made selection. He made selection. He wasn't like the slowest out of the selected. He was like number 15.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's a quantum improvement.
Yeah.
That's
really good,
yeah.
right? And so he made selection, and he like posted about it. Like he was like, I freaking made it. Like he's super stoked, and that's awesome because I tell my kids now, like who I'm leading to mentor, like, dude, I just took the slowest kid, and he made selection because he didn't quit.
Right.
He put in the work, he put in effort, right? Even though he had a lot of other stuff going on, he wanted it.
Right.
And that's really much the end thing of it. Like if you really want it, like you're gonna put in the time and put in the work, and you're gonna find a way, right?
You're gonna take it serious.
Yeah, you're gonna take it serious. And then one thing that he did, I was like, hey, how many hours are you sleeping? I was like, like 1-2 hours. Like what? No, I was like, dude, you need to go to bed.
Yeah.
Like you need to get at least 6, 7, 8 hours. And so he started doing that, like, that's pretty much how he was an engineer too. So that's why he was like super detailed like that.
Yeah.
And so he pretty much, I just gave him a roadmap. I was like, dude, just don't quit. Right. Yeah. And that's
well, also too, one of the things that you did that I hear you saying, you're not coming right out and saying it, but what I hear you saying is that you helped him find balance in his world.
Yeah.
In between sleep, nutrition, school, working out.
Yeah.
All those things. And unfortunately in today's world, the term balance has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear about balance. Everybody wants to be, Dave Goggins and go run 150 miles an hour. If you do anything less than that, then you're not strong, you're not manly, you're not something or another, and if you say balance, they want to argue, I don't need balance in my life. But everybody needs balance.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to achieve anything worth having is if you balance other things in your life, because you can't just walk away from life. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly. And when you start to leave things unattended, or like your job or everything else, like your personal life, like things start to spin out of control, and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, how did I get here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it'll crumble quickly.
Yeah, no, for sure. And balance is you're never gonna know you're not balanced unless you're never gonna know balance unless you're on balance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because it's so dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've all been there. I mean, that's how you learn.
Mm-hmm.
Is your life is totally out of fucking control.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh crap, what do I got to do? And you gather it all back together, and you find that balance, and you smooth it all out. Man, I'm never going back there again.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we end up going back there every once in a while. But But okay, so now you're coaching. Now some things that come to my mind in coaching and watching you coach, and we kind of hit on it earlier, but there's a lot of little nuances to paddling, and especially in a dragon boat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you focus on all of that? Because case in point, you and I were talking about the timing. And it's not just the timing of the person that's in front of you and on the left side of the boat, but it's also now you got the timing on the right side of the boat. And, this timing can all be perfectly in line, and this timing can be all perfectly in line, but they're not in sync with each other.
Right.
So it's kind of like that locomotive thingy. How do you do that? Because I puzzle. I mean, that's really an honest question, because I look at it and it's like I'm sitting in my seat and I'm watching the paddles enter the water, and I'm watching that.
Yeah.
I want that flow.
Yeah.
My peripheral vision isn't over here, and even if it is, okay, and they're off, am I going to adjust to them? And now I'm off here. Mm-hmm. Where does all that? How does that play itself out? How do you straight? Is it seat 1 and 2 that are? Where does it all go?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think the left and right side timing, because you have 10 rows, right? You have 20 people in a boat, 10 rows, and it starts with the stroke pair. Right, and then you have the timing box. The timing box, is supposed to keep it real tight, and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard it's not easy, right? It's one thing, because we're so focused on keeping time. What's in front of us, right?
Right.
Moving together, left side, right?
Yeah.
But then when I start to see a drastic difference between the left and right side, then there's a breakage somewhere. And so this is where the paddler development happens. Developing the paddlers to be able to adjust on their own, and knowing the sequence of events, and knowing where and how their body's supposed to be moving, and how to place their pressure in the water. And that comes with more cognitive thinking and being aware and focused and present into what's happening. So just for me, being able to call out those differences from side to side is for everybody to go, okay, well, someone on the left or right side is rushing. It's either,
then that becomes it's you. No, it's you.
Yeah.
You got a back and forth there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I never thought about that, actually.
Yeah. And what brought it to mind is when we were doing tractor pulls, and I got a lady next to me, and I'm not that's my bad.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking solely in me. I'm not a team member at that point in
Yeah.
time. And so I'm like way ahead, and I'm not even thinking about, okay, we're not going to get this boat going until we're together.
Yeah.
But my peripheral vision isn't
Yeah.
working this way because I'm focused here, and it's maybe what I'm talking about is just time in the seat. Maybe it's just experience.
I think it is, and again, you have like different. I think if you're with your partner, right? Like, okay, if we're doing tractor pulls, right? The whole point of the tractor pulls is to kind of get focused on big pressure and load and holding that through. Mm-hmm. Then it also, it gives you that time, that intimate time with you and your partner to kind of, okay, we're gonna push this together. We're gonna go. We're gonna lock. We're gonna load together. We're gonna push with the two of us with just our row. Right. So I think that's kind of the reason why I kind of do it. It also helps build strength too, right?
Yeah.
Because when it's just your single row, then that's a lot of load. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck,
I love it. I love that. I love that. I love that feel, that pressure on the paddle. It's just, but, and maybe that's something that, I definitely need to think about it, and maybe it's something that needs to be explained before we go into the tractor pull. Mm-hmm. Work as a team, side by side. Yeah. Who's going to be the leader?
Yeah, for sure.
And then follow it through.
Yeah,
that's because I felt really embarrassed and I felt bad. That
I remember you talking to me about this.
Yeah, stuff like that because it's. When you get into a sport like this, and you're getting into a sport because it's a team sport, and you want to do everything you can to be that team player, and get out of yourself. Yeah. As an athlete, you're all about yourself. Yeah. So you've got this quandary going on inside you of being a team player and giving to the team and slowing down for the team or doing whatever is best in the interest of the team, and that I'm out grinding it out for yourself. Yeah, that's
I have a good story. I mean, this was our this happened back last summer. We were racing our last 500 meter race in the open division at the Club Crew World Championship, and we had beat the top team at that regatta, right, in the semi, right, or in the first round, of the 500 in open, which caused them to do what's called a repertoire, which is they're like kind of like a semi. Oh. So since we won that first heat, we didn't have to do a second heat. We just go straight to the final, right? Yeah. And so I was pumped. Like we've been second place, like by mere seconds, like, and we beat them. We're like, yes, this is our fucking time. Like I wanted gold so bad.
Right.
I wanted gold so bad. Like it was right there, And so I was too, I was too amped up. I was too stimulant. Too much stimulant in my head. Like we're gonna fucking we gotta do this week. And so it's really easy to kind of fall into that, because going into the final race, I was amped up, like I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And and like we're still moving as a team, but I was trying to paddle as hard as I can, right, to make sure we do that in time, right? But I was too much in my own head, and so we didn't make gold, right? They did their semis, right? Like fuck yeah, they're fucking tired, and then they beat us, right? There is a picture of this race, and you'll see my face. You'll see my face. I want to show you guys. There's a picture.
You can airdrop it to me as well. So I
can yeah. Let's see here. Gosh, load. Oh yeah, here. Let me screenshot this. There's a picture of me looking. There's a picture of me looking, and this guy. I forget his name, Kevin Kwok. He's a Canadian paddler. He's pretty well known in Canada, and he stood up because he won. They won the race, and there's a picture, and I'm just looking up in defeat, and I'm just like I was, I would, I would never forget because we didn't perform, right? We didn't execute, right? We were too amped up or too like.
Do you think that the boat was
I think it was.
in that mindset, or you think just a few of you were, or
I think it was probably a few of us,
uh-huh.
right? Yeah, see that guy right there.
Oh,
Oh man,
yeah.
that was hurting.
Yeah.
That's me right there looking at him in the second seance. Oh man. Yeah, that picture was that was hard. I felt bad. It was easy to fall into the me.
Yes.
And I felt like it was my fault. I was like
Yeah.
super sad about it. Like I was like, man, I can't believe like this could have been ours.
I think we all have that experience.
Yeah.
At some level, at some point. You know, if you've been an athlete for any length of time, you know what that is.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening.
Yeah.
Especially when you feel as though you played a role.
Yeah.
In that happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of the toughest races. I was like, fuck, man,
yeah.
You know, it overall like the whole race was like, let's go, it didn't feel great, right? Our first race was great. Like we were moving, right? And I don't know. At least in my own head, right? I was too amped up.
Yeah.
I was hyped.
Yeah.
I was like I was ready to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, in doing that, did you think that, or looking back, do you think that there were any mistakes in your technique, in your form, in your, you know, what was it that, I mean, were you out of sync? Were you not grabbing enough? What was it?
I think for that particular race, I was kind of like, I was probably like pushing like the rate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably brushing a little bit, because and here's the thing, because I do remember. So I did rush a little bit, right? And I can tell, right? So like, you know, and then you have to kind of recognize that right away so you can adjust, right? Because if you can't adjust, like, it's just going to keep happening and you're going to lose that ground, right? Especially in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely felt like I was rushing. I mean, obviously I was just one of other 19 people that are on the boat, right?
Right.
So I can't really speak for what they were doing. I mean, in the video it looks great, but for, I guess during that time it happened by so fast. Like it's gone.
It's
right.
Gone. Yeah.
Like you hit that start, and then you're cranking out 100 strokes a minute, and you're transitioning to that body, and you see in the corner of your eye. You don't look over, but you see in the corner of your eye like where you could possibly be. You never want to look over.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like we can do this. Like we can press. Right.
Well, especially when you're talking inches.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't leave you a boat length behind.
No.
You know, I mean, you were right there.
Yeah, we were right there.
And that's more painful.
Yeah.
When you're right there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And that's, like, again, that's probably, that kind of goes back to, like, why do I do this? You know, that fucking hurts so much. Like, you know, like, why? You know, and then, I don't know. It's yeah, because the races are measured by mere milliseconds sometimes, you know, for that first and second place. And then, you know, you kind of look back and you're like, I fucking trained super hard for this. I'm super happy with how we performed, right? I was telling, like I said before, like, dragon boat racing in California has, like, changed so much now in the last 10 years, because now, like, in my opinion, I think California has the fastest dragon boat clubs, right? And you have paddlers out who are the teams who are dominating were from New York City or in Philadelphia, and I mean, I think like any other sport, right? Recruiting is always a hard thing,
right?
But those teams out there, we were racing at U.S. Nationals 2021. We were racing teams from like New York City, you know, and those are teams that are normally really good. And again, this is where Outrigger and dragon boat come together, right? Because then we learn how to move a boat better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and 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 the style and how we paddle and how we think we paddle is different. It's different. And if you ever get a chance to see paddlers from like New York City and Philadelphia, like they have a different stroke style. They have more like a marathon stroke. Here it's a little bit more outrigger-y. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see the different styles. But going back to how things have changed is that California is definitely on the up and coming for sure.
What do you think? What do you think is the push behind that? What's changed that's driving California?
The paddlers.
Yeah.
The paddlers. The coaches.
Yeah.
Right. It's the coaches. And also, like, there was a team here in California. They were called California United. So after 2011 at the U20 at the World Championship 2011, a lot of those California kids came back to California and were like, we don't want this to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I joined the Navy.
Yeah.
Moved to California. Right. And I met with those guys that I was paddling with. And they started a crew called the California United, and that is a collegiate age crew. We had people from all the different UCs here in Southern California, and we had a hub up in NorCal. And then periodically we'll come together, train, race, and then they were aiming to go to a Club Crew World Championship, which they did, and they qualified. But those kids now are in those leadership positions up in NorCal and SoCal. Mm-hmm. Those kids now are paddling in those different disciplines. And they're the ones, and it's crazy to see because now we're the ones like that is kind of pushing the sport to where it is. And now it's kind of like, again, that's kind of like that little fostering, that mentorship kind of deal.
Right.
And then, you kind of got mentored, you did the training, got that experience. And then as, years go by, right, then you kind of go into those coaching positions where you're like, okay, well, I want to make an impact this way, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what the driving push is, right? Because now these coaches are paddling, outrigger teams, right? They're getting training, they're getting knowledge, and the different experience, right? Like outrigger canoe racing and dragman racing are not the same sport.
No.
Right? They're two totally different types of watercraft, but there's some things that overlay that help us, at least on the boat for sure.
Yeah, I think in my way of seeing it is like outrigger, where it helps the dragon boat is the cardio work.
Yeah,
because they're getting out there and it's a longer period of time. And I think where dragon boat is helping the outrigger is in the starts and then getting up, getting it going, and getting there definitely some relationship there that's helping. One's helping the other.
Yeah, for sure.
How are we doing on recruitment? How are you finding new people, especially younger people, and especially younger people in today's environment, where a lot of younger people really don't want to come out.
They just want to quit.
Yeah, they just want to quit. No, what's worse than that is that they don't just want to quit; they don't want to start.
Yeah,
they really don't. And, I mean, that's not being negative. It's just a fact that
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think recruiting is hard because, again, people don't know the sport.
Yeah.
If they don't know the sport, they're like, what am I getting myself into? And why should I do it?
Yeah.
What's the whole point behind it? Like, who cares about trying to move a boat through the water, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's the fun in that?
Yeah. Well, really, when you look at it like that, or you say it like that, I mean, it's really the truth. But
yeah, I mean, that is, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get up early in the morning, you put on PFD, you go in the water, and you get some training in, and you're like, okay, well, what's it for? And so I think right now we're doing a lot of word of mouth. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to do a little bit more like Instagram content, and I think right now I'm gonna go ahead and try. We're gonna go and try to get like some flyers and put them out to gyms and whatnot, and free practices, whatnot. So
yeah.
And that's kind of the main thing that we're trying to do, and also like we have the college teams too, right?
Yeah.
So my thing with the college teams is, especially the U24 candidates, I have them come out and practice. So at least also. My kids that are on my pod, I have them come out to Lard. So that way they can also one, I can get some eyes on and get one-to-one feedback to them, and also like it kind of just allows them to get on Lard and like, hey, they let me paddle with them when I was training, like maybe I should join them. So it's kind of like that. It's their choice if they want to join too, right? And there's plenty of teams on Long Beach to pick a team.
Really
right?
true.
Yeah. So there's what makes my team different, right? So and it's hard. You want to be able to differentiate those kind of things because there's different flavors for everybody, right?
Right.
You have the team that's a little bit older. You have like the younger team, and they're like super young and they're all the same age, and then you have like the adult teams, and you have like the half and half young, half old, and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's it's hard.
Yeah, I'm just picturing it.
And then you bring some new people on board, and it depends where you are in the season. If like people are already like on point and locked in, and you get someone new, and they're like, "Well, I suck. I don't want to do this. Like, you're so much better, right?" And so that's the hard thing. So usually when it comes to like the newer people coming in, I try to like make them feel comfortable. Like, hey, I like thank you for coming. Like, I want you to come back, right? And so I think for me, the recruiting, if people try to come in and they want to try the sport and they liked it, but they're not sure how they do, like I tell them like, you got to keep coming out because you're not going to get any better, but also everyone starts exactly where you're at, right? I didn't paddle the way I paddle now because I just know how to paddle, right? It takes years of training, years of like self-analysis and development, like how can I get better? You gotta like want to like, if like in the sport, like you want to get better, right?
Well, you have to shed your ego.
Yeah.
You have to shed that ego, and you have to be humble.
Yeah.
Because if you're not humble on your own, it will humble you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And especially the humbleness, right? It's easy to like, feel like think you're all fucking that, and get fucking smoked.
You can get smoked, or you can just. You can fall quickly from grace.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a life truism. That no matter what you're doing, if you think you're all that, just wait, because tomorrow's a whole nother day.
Yeah,
it's but because I watched the the people that are coming out and the people that are paddling, and I'm looking to see, okay, where's the next generation going to be? Where are we going to get them from? Where are they going to come from? Because it's really as popular as it is worldwide, it's still one of the best kept secrets around. As far as getting new people or people to understand what it is or how it is, or it's no different than Outrigger. Outrigger's the same thing. You tell people that you paddle and they have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 miles offshore.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching it.
Yeah. No, I just go, have you been to Hawaii? Like, like Moana or something like that?
Yeah, I know. That's what I say. Like Hawaiian with the Outrigger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So they're picturing some big Hawaiian steering it through the waves for you, and you're just sitting watching.
Yeah. And then like it's dragon boat racing. Dragon boats as a sport is such a weird name, dude. Like, what's dragon boat? Like,
Then you got to get into the whole explanation.
Like, let me go on and show it to you. Like, this is
Well, it's funny because we have a great race right here at Marine Stadium.
Yeah.
And all the years that it's been going on, I'm embarrassed to say I've never been down there.
Oh wow.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. Wait, have you never done a dragon boat race before?
No.
Oh man.
I've only been in a dragon boat 5 times.
Nice.
You got me at my infancy, buddy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you're gonna have a good time at the Arizona. Arizona is actually one of my favorite races, mainly because you get to see the college kids.
Yeah.
Like I was just talking to one of my buddies. He's a coach for UCSD, and I was like, I got money on you guys, like. Because I've seen, because this was during the pandemic, right? Like he took on a whole new team. All the veterans left, right? And he's good to go. Like he's a fast guy, and he took his team. He made the selection for 2021, and he took his team and he went to NorCal has a college cup race. So all the college teams go and they like race for who's the best college. And I had my money bet on UCSD. Because I know like the level of the coach, right?
Right.
And also I know historically like UCI is like super good, and Cal Dragon Boat's super good. So it's like March Madness, at the Arizona race. Like you get to see these college teams, high energy, they're all pumped up, they're all screaming, right? I don't do it anymore, but like they're all pumped up,
Yeah.
and they just go out there and they just hammer it out, and it's just so good to see.
It's so fun.
Yeah, and that's like that generation where you're like, yeah, like they're gonna keep coming up, and you gotta like kind of like foster them to kind of carry on what's already been established and kind of uphold that spirit.
You know, it's such a fun sport, but it's also it's very rewarding. You know, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, to whether it's outrigger or whether it's dragon boat, they're both hard.
Yeah,
and but it being hard is where the reward comes from.
Yeah.
You know, without any effort, you don't get the reward.
No, absolutely.
But you put out all the effort, there's a reward at the end. And if that reward is just feeling good about yourself on the drive home, that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not a lot of people are willing to put the effort out.
Right.
That it takes.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult. And that's not even talking about the paddling technique, you know, and how we have to paddle, and how, you know, what the form is like, and you know, that's always a slippery slope, a moving object that, you're right when you think that you got it, you don't got it.
Yeah, and it comes back to a mindset thing.
Yeah,
right. Like, again, you know, these guys, the crew that I'm coaching right now, like I have them. Hey, it's a mindset. You got to make sure that if you come off the water, like, hey, that was a solid practice. Like, I learned something I didn't know. Right. That's awesome. Right. And then, you know, it's like I said, it's a team thing. It's easy. It's so easy to hide behind somebody.
Yes.
On the boat.
Yeah.
And then it's easy to tell too, because I can see it, you know, and I tell the crew, like, hey, I'm freaking keeping up with you guys, and you guys have a full boat. You know, I'm on my one man.
Yeah.
Right. And you guys should be way ahead of me.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you know, that's kind of like where I hope I lead by example, you know, even though I wish I had a launch to coach also, you know, but I go on my one man. One, it gives me time to paddle, but it also gives me time to see everyone individually.
Right.
And so I think it's one way I kind of make sure that the team is kind of separated, like at least when they uphold themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Like when we go back to the shore, I'm like, dude, you guys got to paddle perfect. You got to look good. If you don't look good, you ain't good. You know, like
it's a truism, huh?
You know, like you gotta. It's all how about you present yourself. You know,
right.
Like, you know, if you're a fast team, you're gonna look like a fast team. You know, and you're gonna look smooth. You're gonna look effortless. Right? And I'm all about presentation and you know how you uphold yourself on and off the water. You know, I think it kind of goes. There's lessons that you could take in dragon boat and apply them to any way in your life.
Right.
I feel like that with like any type of job that you do or any type of activity, there's always like some type of lesson that is always learned. Because, you know, I don't know. I think especially in dragon boat, man, like just 20 people, you just can't quit. Right?
No, you can't get out of the boat.
No.
You know, you just can't say, okay, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
You know, you owe it to everybody else to just keep doing it.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice. It's a choice to carry more pressure. It's a choice to carry more pain, you know? So I'm all about that. I love that stuff, you know?
I love the pressure. I really, you know, and until you feel that catch and that pressure that's on there, there's you know, when you can do that time and time again, then you know that you are doing your part on the boat.
Absolutely.
You know, that's when you know. You know, when it feels easy, you're slacking.
Yeah.
Somebody else is picking up the slack for you because you're not doing it.
Right.
You know, and that's a bad feeling.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've got places to go, and this has been a great podcast. It's been really enjoyable. I'm so happy to have you on.
Hey, thank you for having me. I think it's been awesome.
Yeah,
you know?
we're gonna have to do it again.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe next time we can do something and we'll pull up a bunch of pictures and we can use it as kind of a recruitment.
Yeah.
For them. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I'm sure you have a good outreach, and then I'd probably like to hear what your experience is when you go to Arizona.
Yeah,
That's gonna be awesome.
that'd be good. That'd be a good podcast. Let's plan on that when we get back from Arizona. Let's get back together again. We'll download Arizona for all of our outrigger and dragon boat friends out there.
We'll do a recap.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be
play
fun.
by play.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a good time.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good time in Arizona because, I think when you're coaching a race, it's like different.
Yeah,
because I'll be on the boat probably steering, or I'll be steering to 2K, and then I'll probably be steering to 500s and stuff. But when you're coaching in a dragon boat race, it's like, I'm usually out there like watching, like looking at like what's our stroke rate, like what's the crew look like. You got to make these adjustments,
Yeah.
So
I don't know what to expect, but
just
looking for a good time.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Man. Thank you.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.